Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Okay, Bye.
Hey.
No? Okay. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about gender roles.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we are.
Gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and we're not talking about the kind that you eat.
Or the roles that I have right here. Probably a little too much.
Right? It is gender roles. What defines masculine or male, or that masculine energy,
Yeah.
and the feminine, female, he, she. Definitely don't want to get into pronouns because I feel like that's a whole different podcast that we can get into, because even I don't have a full understanding, and
Right.
I just don't want to misspeak and misrepresent, and just it's a whole different thing that we want to get into.
It's a whole different ballpark.
But what we're talking about is the institutionalized roles of the male and the female, right? So throughout history, what that means, different cultures, it means different things. I do find that many cultures share the same views where the masculine energy is more dominant.
Right.
And the feminine energy is much more nurturing and much more submissive, right? And so the man of the house, it's always the man of the house, the man of this, the man of that. And, the woman wasn't really given much. And to this day, we're still trying to see where women fall into place.
Yeah.
There's a lot of progression, right?
Right. And we still kind of see it sometimes in our grandparents. I mean, I don't have my grandparents anymore, but I've seen it in other like friends and stuff and their grandparents, and it's like, oh shit, like it's still like machismo is still a real thing. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I've seen where they'll be like, oh, my grandma doesn't drive. Like my grandpa just never let her drive. Like,
oh,
what do you mean? Like, oh no, but he just never let her drive because she didn't need to, because she was an ama de casa, stay-at-home wife, so she never needed to drive.
Yeah.
So it was just not a necessity.
Yeah, that was rampant. I mean, there's a lot of cultures that still believe that the women don't drive. It's not their role.
Yeah.
Right? So historically, the role of the male or the man is to work, provide for the family,
Right.
make babies.
Birth control wear.
I mean, yeah, when it comes to the Polynesian and the Samoan, mindset, back in the day, it was always, you were known as a warrior, or a warrior if you had multiple wives, or if you can get multiple women. It just was a thing. Women just knew their place, quote unquote, and that place was at home. You don't question it, whether you know about their infidelities or not.
Wow.
It was that unspoken, well, he's coming home to me. I know that that's really given birth to a lot of resentment in many relationships, but at the end of the day, gone are the times where back then you just swallowed it. You swallowed all of that, not even shame, because they weren't even ashamed of it. You know what I mean? For them, it was, they were hurt about it, but they swallowed their pride and everything because they wanted to make their husbands happy. Their job was to make their husband happy.
Dang, that's hard.
Yeah, and everything was male driven. We had a lot of male chiefs. I mean, and then you'll get some female chiefs. But in our culture, we definitely respect our women. It's, you take care of the women, and that's why we work hard. We work hard because we want to make sure that they're taken care of. They are going to be the mother of your children. They will bear you. A lot of times women were used as property back then. They weren't really seen as humans across the world, right?
Right.
But in our culture, the women were strong. We held women in high esteem. We even had a female. We had one queen. I said a female queen, as opposed to a male queen.
I mean, there
which we have a lot of those too.
Nowadays.
Hey, queen.
Hey.
But we had one queen. But women did have power. A lot of times, women came with these ties to really big families.
Right.
So their position too, and that was a political one, where you got married for their ties, for the titles that they bring.
Wow.
So it's a huge thing, but it's interesting to see, with the coming of religion or just some deeply rooted cultural things where women just don't have the ability to move up in society. They weren't given that ability, like, in ours, where you can hold chiefly titles.
Yeah.
There's also a title for the high, the daughter of a high chief. It's so much power that comes from that, and different roles also that we'll get into a little bit later in this podcast around the sibling roles, right? So the male and the brother sister role and all that good stuff. So definitely interested in hearing more about Mexico, because we talked about some of those roles in the machismo.
Right. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Pancho Villa.
Yeah.
Pancho Villa, right? So everybody knows about Pancho Villa, but during that war that happened, women were being robbed from their villages. So these women, like, some families would dress them up as males because they didn't want them to get robbed because they were as property. So the soldiers would come through, they'd rob all the women they can find, and they'd take them as their property, as their slaves. So they're going to wash my clothes, they're going to cook for me, I'm going to get them pregnant, and they're going to be mine, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so eventually this woman, her name was Adela, I don't remember her last name, but she became one of the first women warriors, and it was like a huge change. And Adelita, like, everybody's like, oh, like, I want to be a warrior too. Like, I want to fight at war. And that's when kind of women started taking place. And they never wanted to give her the title of, like, higher than Pancho Villa because she was a woman. Even though she fought at war, got her hands dirty, they never wanted to give her that title.
That's hard.
And it's so sad because women stood behind her and they're like, like, we're not going to get raped by these men. We're not going to get robbed. And it was sad, but it's something that happened throughout history. And it's definitely like that gender role thing that just because she was a woman, like, she couldn't.
It's hard. Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking about even a women's right to vote, and it's very relevant in this climate and this time right now where we're just barely getting over an election that was supposed to be over 2 weeks ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
But a woman's right to vote in America, 1920. So it was ratified in 1919, but it was actually passed and it was made into an amendment in 1920, 100 years ago.
My grandpa was born 1924.
Which is crazy. So
like,
women didn't have any voices.
Yeah.
Back then it was just them. It was all in the men's arms. So all of these issues that we've talked about, the progression of women throughout history and these roles were decided upon by men. And that's how history is. Yeah. The man of the house dictates what happens. The man of the house dictates how you raise the children. Yes, you are birthing them, but guess what? At that time, women were just property.
Right.
Right. And even in certain cultures in different countries where your job as a woman was to procreate, to have children, to be able to give, and that's how you want it for your family. That's how you got the favor of the king or whoever, and that's how you got bestowed all of these gifts, was by bearing children to the king.
Wow.
Right? You were just a baby making machine. You were property at that point, and you were this pawn in this game where men wanted to make sure that their line goes on.
Yeah.
Right. And so you also see these roles, and we'll get into sexuality. We talk about different subjects in our podcast that we'll definitely touch on later, but sexuality was a big thing too. I can speak for the Polynesian culture. Like, we don't talk about it much right now, but the roles that gender plays there is the chiefs of back then, of olden day, and even kings, they would have sex with men.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something that you don't talk about because of our Christian values and all that good stuff. But pleasure was given by a male because guess what? Good thing about messing with the same sex is you don't get pregnant.
We're winking.
Right? So they can't get pregnant. And so the joys and all of that pleasure came from that. Where with women, your wife or whatnot, it was for procreation, to have babies. You hear about it in the Greek and the Roman armies. They would fight harder for their lover who was fighting next to them than for their wives at home because women were just like property.
Yeah, it was just property.
It was just property. You could do, and that's when women were beat. Right? The rule of thumb. That's where that whole thing comes from. Do you know where that saying comes from?
No.
You've heard the saying, the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
So the rule of thumb is there was a law that said that you can beat your wife, but it cannot be anything bigger than your thumb.
Shut your face. Wait, like the actual thumb, like here, or your whole from?
I think it's like just the width of it.
I will fuck you up. Do not touch me. Oh my God, that is so sad.
Yeah, there's like so much that when it comes to history of again that whole dominion and
rule of thumb.
Rule of thumb. So when you talk about that, it was a whole dominance. I said dominion earlier, but it's dominance. It's a dominance thing. It's a male driven dominance. And again, we can see why rightfully so women are very agitated and very upset about some of these things, right? Because throughout history, they have been marginalized, and to some degree, I think we've all given way to that by saying, well, that's just the way that it is, right? That's just how we operate. I find myself, when the whole reason for our podcast is because we live in two different worlds.
We do. We definitely do.
And there's sometimes where I literally think like an American, and I'm like, no, screw that. Women should have rights, blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes when I put my Samoan hat on, when I'm at functions, or you will learn very quickly that sometimes you don't have a voice, or you cannot speak, or there's different protocols, from when you're talking about succession of titles or in family matters, where is it children or the line that comes from males versus the females, where the males, descendants have more say than the female.
Wow.
And so it's just very interesting to see that. And that's just the way that it is. And there's social norms, and then there's cultural norms that it is the undoing of an entire culture.
It just reminds me of I feel like you know this already. I don't cook. I don't care for cooking. Like, it's not, I can cook good cup of noodles, but I don't care for cooking. I don't care for cooking. And like my family, it's like, well, what are you going to do when you get married? Yeah. Who's going to give a hot meal to your husband? And that's when like me as an American.
Jack in a Box?
Yeah. Taco Bell? Mexican American. I'm like, I don't care. He could feed himself. I'm like, how could you? Like, you're Mexican. You should be the one who gets home first, has that hot meal for him, because he's the one that's going to be providing for you. I was like, the fuck? Like,
the hell I am.
No.
Right.
Get myself lunch and you find your pizza. How you gonna eat? But that's what I also think about. Like, my parents and my family, they're all like traditional Mexicans. They're like, no, you need to feed your man. Like,
yeah, girl, what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, well, good thing for us. Like in Samoan culture, it's the men cook.
I'm gonna find myself a Samoan man.
The men cook. You see them actually outside in the earth ovens. You know what I mean? Cooking, working hard, going up into what we call our manga, which is like our version of our plantation that we have on top of the mountains. And you grow your own livestock, you grow your own like plants and things that you're going to feed your family with. And so it is the man's job, but our women are equally as yoked, and they do the same thing. I mean, they're inside taking care of the children, weaving mats. Those are their roles. These are the things that they're supposed to be doing. And then our job as providers is we're out fishing and all that good stuff. My mom, the way, she grew up with 5 other sisters, so there's 6 of them. So my grandparents didn't have boys. Well, they did, but he passed away very young. And so they had to be the boys.
Right.
That's they had to be. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Not to say that they made them into tomboys and turn them into this boy. And I just remember watching this one documentary about Fa'afafine, which is a transvestite, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it's someone, I don't want to say that they're cross-dressing, because this is a more effeminate man. You know what I mean? Like they look like women, and they're, but that documentary was like, was stating that if a family does not have a daughter, they chose one of the boys and made them into a girl. I'm like, that I've never, look, if my fellow Samoans, if you have anyone out there that you chose to, one of your brothers to, or your sons, I've never heard it, let me know. But I know that that's not the Samoan way. So it was interesting to see this documentary. And I think it was on National Geographic that stated, well, they picked a boy to be this Fa'afafine. And I'm like, I don't think anyone ever chooses someone else
Samoan
to be. Right? I'm like, I'd like to speak on behalf of the delegation of the Samoans that did not get chosen. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's just interesting, some of those roles and what they say.
Wow. So you said your mom, she was one of 6 girls. Mm-hmm. That's super interesting. And then you have how many sisters?
I have 2 and 2.
And how?
No, 2 and 1. I'm sorry.
So how different is it from like how do I word this? Like siblings. Like your mom, like for example, us, you always have to listen to your older brother, but your mom only had girls. So how was that for her?
Yeah. So it's in our culture, like the oldest will always have the final say.
Wow.
Right? We respect that whole eldest thing. And so if you're older than someone, and I remember my parents would always say, whether they're wrong, whether they're right, it doesn't matter. Whoever's oldest, you have to listen to. It's all about respect.
Oh, I love that.
All about respect. But between a brother and a sister, that is a sacred bond. That is in itself something so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. In the Samoan culture, that was the most sacred bond that anyone could have. Not even between a husband or wife. It was between a brother and a sister. And so no matter if the brother was older and the sister was younger, your sister was your, they say, which talks about the pupil of your eye is your sister. And so brother and sister were not allowed to party together. The brother was not allowed to eat until the sister ate. The brother was not allowed to go to sleep until the sister slept. Oh, wow. The brother, you do not get to sleep in the sister's bed. And so they called that the whiangainga, which is the covenant. So whiangainga is the covenant that was the most sacred of relationships in our culture.
Wow.
And with the coming of Christianity, they took that whiangainga and gave it to the pastor. So now the pastor is known as a whiangainga because of that the most sacred of relationships has now been bestowed upon this pastor, this priest, whatever the case may be, because now you're this direct link to God,
Right.
So that's where, those roles are, even though you could be a chief outside, you could still be a chief, you know what I mean? You could be the high chief of the village, but your respect, in your immediate family was your sister.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's crazy because I think about it now and it's like, shoot, like you said, my mom didn't have any brothers. So like her male cousins, they were all raised together. And that's how our family unit is huge. And I swear they got that whole saying, it takes a village to raise a child from Polynesia or from Samoa. Because literally the entire village is your family. I mean,
that's so cute.
They're pretty much your family for sure by blood too. But it takes that village to raise that child. But to have all these sisters, they didn't have that family line. Plus Christianity was already there. But for us modern day, where I drink with my sisters,
right?
You know what I mean? So back then in the day, that would totally be frowned upon.
Wow.
Totally. And they also say the reason why you don't party with siblings should not party with each other is you don't know what you're doing when you're drunk. You might end up sleeping with your own, So, so.
Nope. Not gonna go do that.
What about the sibling roles in Mexico or the Hispanic community?
Mostly it's like super machista, like super like your brother can go out but you can't. But why?
Yeah.
Because he's a boy. But why? Because he's a boy.
That's so crazy.
Go clean,
right?
Like what the fuck?
Go clean, go cook.
Go clean, go cook. And I'm like,
you can't go out.
Yeah, you can't go out. No, you're not.
Because you're gonna go get pregnant at 13, right?
Yeah. Like my brother would go skate and I'd be like, Mom, can I go to Sarah's house across the street? Did you clean? Like, what the fuck? You literally didn't do anything. And
or they could come here, you can't go there.
Yeah. I'm like, what the hell, Mom? Que venga? Dile que venga. What the hell?
No, never mind. I don't want to anymore.
Yeah. But that's one of the only things that it was like, the brother could always go out. You couldn't. God, I hated it.
God, I felt like I could never go out, and I'm a boy.
Really?
I guess, kind of.
I wonder. Why wouldn't they let you go?
My parents were super strict.
Yeah.
Holy hell, super strict.
Really?
Anyone that knew me like back then, it was like, sorry, Mom. And Dad, now that you're in heaven, you totally know all of my secrets. But a lot of times my friends in high school would joke about Key Club.
What is that?
Key Club, like, where you do community.
What is
They do not join any clubs in high school.
No, I did not.
But it's different, like clubs in high school. They would always believe if I was doing something for school.
So
but
cute.
never believe the truth. So I could be like, I'm going to go hang out with so-and-so. Why? You're lying. You're going to be doing this.
Oh, my God.
But if it was anything school related, it was like no questions asked.
Dang. So let me tell you a story. So I was like a junior year. I think I wasn't working yet. And I was dating this one guy. And I totally skipped summer school. I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go hang out with this guy. So I hung out with him for like 2 weeks straight. My brother skated by and saw me at the park. My bitch ass turned around and like,
you got your ass beat.
Dude, so I got home and he's like, fuck you, Jose, for this. And I got home and he's like, I saw you at the park. I was like, I'll give you $20. Please don't tell my mom. He's like, I won't. I give him $20.
And he told.
But my mom didn't say anything. So I heard my happy ass got picked up at school. My mom was like, how was school, Janet? I was like, it was good. She's like, really? Because I fucking called the school. And my mom doesn't cuss. And I was like, oh, shit. She's like, where were you? And I was like, oh, I was hanging out with my friend. She's like, no, because I drove by the park and I saw you kissing this boy.
Oh, my God.
Anyway.
You're such a sucia.
Oh, my God.
Eres una puta.
That was like the most wildest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
My hands are still sweaty. Think about my mom yelling at me. Sorry, Amma.
So like you're definitely scarred.
I was
brings back
scarred.
memories.
Yeah, I used to remember her eyes like looking at me like I'm gonna beat your ass.
I cannot wait to get into our excursions and our escapades.
You guys are in for a treat.
Y'all better be ready because like there's some shit. All right, well that concludes our episode of gender roles today.
Yeah,
you know what to do. Like, follow, subscribe. Hit us a line, send us a DM. We appreciate all the love that we're getting so far.
Of course.
We appreciate all of the feedback that you guys are giving us. It's much, much appreciated. We thank you guys for actually offering up that support. And actually just that feedback. It really matters to us because we want to know.
Yes. Let us know how you like the new lighting, the new setup, the cute my new microphone that I'm trying out for special guests in the future.
And my COVID-19. And I mean, like the pounds that I put on, whatever.
Yeah. So that's it.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Yeah, that's better. So I was like, oh no, it's like kind of hiding you. Oh my God, that sounded like The Grudge. Stop! There's nobody home today.
You have ring lights, so it's gonna be like the ring on the TV.
Oh my God, I was actually terrified of that movie, and then I saw a scary movie like 2, and it made it work. Oh my God, did you see my new TV stand?
Yeah, but your TV looked like there was a ring in there.
Stop it!
But it was like from the ring lights.
Stop. I know it was not ring lights. Ring lights just became a thing like not that long ago. Arnez, you better fucking stop. I'm gonna go home with you.
And you're alone today.
I know I'm alone today. Stop. Okay. Oh my God.